Hello. Thank you for joining us today for a webinar on Nonpublic Equitable Services as we roll out the Nonpublic Data System for the FY20 data reporting window. My name is Chantel Carter, and I am the Ombudsman for Nonpublic Equitable Services in Ohio. I'm also an Education Program Specialist in the Office of Federal Programs. Today we are going to cover several topics. We are going to briefly review the role of the Ombudsman, discuss enhancements to the Nonpublic Data System, or NPDS, review the calculation of nonpublic equitable service amounts, and discuss changes to non-chartered non-tax schools participation. This past November, the Office of Federal Programs released CCIP Note number 403 that provided comprehensive guidance on the role of the Ombudsman. The Ombudsman is required by statute and serves as a resource for nonpublic schools by providing the following: resources and information to nonpublic schools, impartial technical assistance related to equitable service requirements, updates to nonpublic schools on the Office of Federal Programs systems, timelines, and policies, serves as the Office of Federal Programs representative on the Nonpublic Advisory Committee and manages all questions and correspondence related to the federal equitable service requirements, works with the Office of Federal Programs operation team and CCIP developers to maintain a listing of nonpublic schools, contacts, and a history log of all correspondence from and to the Office of Federal Programs and the nonpublic schools, works with the Office of Federal Programs operation team to ensure appropriate enhancements are made to the nonpublic data system, updates office and agency federal guidance documents related to equitable services and proper placement on the Office of Federal Programs website and CCIP document library, develops consolidated ESEA grants monitoring protocols, both on-site and desk reviews, according to the department's uniform monitoring schedule, provides regular updates to the Office of Federal Programs Administration, and works with the Office of Federal Programs Complaint Coordinator to ensure nonpublic complaints are filed, reviewed, and resolved in the appropriate time frame. One of the cornerstones providing nonpublic equitable services is the consultation process. It is imperative that consultation is timely, meaningful, and ongoing. Consultation must occur before the public district makes any decisions that affects nonpublic schools. This consultation should be ongoing. The conversations are beginning now as nonpublic schools are entering data into the NPDS system and should continue throughout the year to the evaluation of the program. And finally, the consultation should be meaningful. The ultimate goal is reaching agreement on how to provide equitable and effective programs for eligible private school children. When the Nonpublic Data System was released in 2015, a series of YouTube videos were created. These videos walk nonpublic principals step by step through the process. Just a disclaimer, these videos were created in 2015. There have been minor enhancements within the system each year, so the steps will not be in exact alignment. While the system does not exactly match, there is usefulness to those first learning how to navigate in NPDS. The Nonpublic Data System Training Manual will be updated to reflect the new enhancement in NPDS for this release. District personnel and nonpublic school principals will receive a CCIP note with a link to the manual. The manual will also be available in the User Manuals and Forms tab of NPDS. It is important to note the Title I service displayed in NPDS reflects the current year's service. NPDS aggregates all low-income counts regardless of Title I service displayed for informational purposes only. When the FY20 CCIP application is released, the system will only pull low-income counts reported to public buildings that are Title I served in the new application. This number may not match the number displayed in the NPDS system. So here you can see a screen capture from our system. Only total enrollment, free lunch or equivalent, and reduced price lunch or equivalent will be displayed. The participation form remains mostly unchanged, marking yes to "Do you want to participate in Title I?" is what will trigger the system to calculate an equitable service amount. There will be a validation in the system that will only let non-public school principals mark yes to participate in Title I if there are low-income counts reported. Remember, NPDES will aggregate all low-income counts regardless of public building Title I service, but only those low-income counts reported to Title I served attendance areas in the FY20 application will generate a service amount. In addition to the question, was timely and meaningful consultation provided, there will be a new question. Do you believe the services are equitable with respect to eligible private school children? This will be a yes or no radio button. Here is a screen capture of the Title I participation form. The yellow indicates changes in the system this year. The total low-income counts will be aggregated on this form. This number should only be used to inform your consultation. This includes all of the low-income children reported with no regard to whether they reside in a Title I served attendance area. When the FY20 consolidated application is released and the district identifies which buildings will be Title I served, CCIP will interface with NPDES to only pull low-income counts reported to Title I served attendance area. That number may not match the number displayed here. There are some validations built into the system. The non-public school must have low-income counts in order to select yes to participate. If the non-public school marks no to either of the last two questions, the form will not be able to move forward to public approved status. By marking no to either of those questions, the public district has an obligation to continue to provide consultation to meet the intent of equitable services. On the following screens, you'll see screen captures from the NPDES system for each of the other pages in the participation form. This page shows Title IIA, Part A. Again, you can see the new questions from Title I reflected on this page as well. This is a screen capture of the Title III participation form. This page shows the Title III immigrant participation form. And this page shows the Title IV participation form. The last participation form that you're seeing is the IDEA Part B participation form. This form went unchanged. The U.S. Department of Education's November 2016 guidance on equitable services clarified how to calculate a district's or local educational agency's proportionate share of Title I funds available for all equitable services activities. The guidance explains that the amount generated for Title IA equitable services is based on the number of children from low-income families who attend a private school and live in a participating public school attendance area. However, the students that will be receiving services are based on student needs, not low-income status. This series of slides explains how the proportionate share is calculated. Non-public school principals will report low-income children by free price lunch count and reduced price lunch count. NPDES will aggregate and display all low-income counts for the purpose of consultation. It is expected that public districts will be able to identify the schools that will be Title I served in FY20 to help refine this discussion. Once the FY20 CCIP building eligibility page is completed during the summer of 2019 and public schools are identified for Title I service, CCIP will interface with NPDES. CCIP will pull the low-income counts from NPDES that were reported back to public served buildings. CCIP will set up the proportion of low-income, non-public children divided by the total number of Title I served low-income children. That total number includes both public and non-public school children. The proportion is then applied to the total original allocation to set the non-public set-aside and determine the non-public per pupil amount. Following United States Department of Education Guidance, Section 02. Step 1. The LEA establishes the participating public school attendance areas. Step 2. LEA determines the number of children from low-income families residing in each participating public school attendance area who attend public schools and private schools. Step 3. LEA determines the overall proportion of children from low-income families who reside in participating public school attendance areas and who attend public schools and private schools. Step 4. Using the proportion of children from low-income families who attend private schools, the LEA determines the amount of funds available for equitable services based on that proportionate share of the LEA's total Title I allocation. Here we can see the previous slide in equation form. It is important to note the low-income counts involved in this calculation are all reported at Title I served public attendance areas, both the non-public and public counts. Once we have the proportion of non-public low-income counts, CCIP multiplies that percentage by the original allocation. That total non-public set-aside is displayed on the CCIP set-asides page. The PPA is calculated so that the correct proportionate share for each participating non-public school can be calculated and displayed on the CCIP non-public school service page. I will mention this caveat. If a public district is rank ordering their public buildings using the CEP direct certification counts only, then only the free-priced lunch counts from the non-public school are pulled into this calculation. This is an example of how equitable service amounts are calculated. It is important to note CCIP does this calculation for districts. The only time districts are required to calculate their own equitable service amounts is when they transfer funds into or out of Title I. Historically, much of the equitable services in the non-public setting have been Title I tutoring or intervention services. There have been instances where we have heard there are no eligible students. However, while the primary intent and purpose of Title I is to provide supports to children most at risk of failing the state's challenging academic content standards, under ESSA the scope of Title I services have expanded. For example, these expanded uses include social-emotional interventions such as counseling and mentoring, as well as teacher professional development. Remember, children who receive Title I services must be identified for service using multiple objective, educationally related criteria and must be rank ordered. This still applies regardless of the type of Title I services being provided. Consultation is a process that should be timely and ongoing. This is the time period when program evaluation should be completed and that data used to plan services for next year. How can you best use the title funds that will be generated to meet the needs of the children in non-public schools who reside in Title I served attendance areas? It should also be noted that if a public district opts to transfer funds from one title to another, the district will be responsible for recalculating the non-public equitable service amount. The amounts will need to be recalculated in both the grant that funds were transferred into and the grant in which funds were transferred out of. CCIP Note number 403 from November 2018 outlines the process for calculating equitable services in instances of transferability. If a public district is considering transferring grant funds, this should be discussed during consultation as the decision impacts the amount and type of equitable services that will be provided to non-public schools. Often non-chartered, non-tax schools do not participate in equitable services. However, federal law does not distinguish between chartered and non-chartered non-public schools, and therefore non-chartered, non-tax schools are eligible to participate in the equitable services for Title I, Title IIA, Title III, and Title IVA. This chart summarizes the data required by non-chartered, non-tax schools and the services that could be provided from each program. Non-chartered, non-tax schools that opt into federal programs will be required to provide eligibility data, including average daily membership, or ADM, and low-income counts. They will also be bound by any assurances and requirements for the receipt of equitable services. Public districts and non-public schools must engage in timely and meaningful consultation to identify services that will best meet the needs of identified children under each title program. For public districts who have non-chartered, non-tax schools who opt not to participate in federal programs, it is important to have documentation of consultation for compliance purposes. Thank you for your attention and listening to this webinar. If you have additional questions regarding non-public equitable services, feel free to contact Chantel Carter in the Office of Federal Programs at 614-466-5203 or at the email provided.